Every January, Arsenal fans ask the same question. Is this finally the window we're going to sign a striker? But what if the real story isn't about who Arsenal buys, but why Arteta keeps waiting? Today, we're going to unpack Arsenal January transfer window and whether a surprise move could change everything. January transfer windows at Arsenal are never quiet, even when nothing happens. If you track all the way back, the last time we really did some activity in the January transfer window was in the 22-23 campaign. That was when we signed Leandro Trossard as the backup, when we tried to sign Mikel Arteta and it did not go through. That same window, we tried to sign Moises Caicedo from Brighton, but the move didn't work as well, so we went for Jorginho. And finally, we went and signed Jacob Kivior from Spezia as a backup defender. The next campaign being 23-24, there were no signings in the January transfer window. Last season, there was this urge for a striker. And, we looked around. If you remember, we had tried to sign Benjamin Sesko in the summer, but that didn't work out. But the lead player that we came close to signing in January transfer window last season was Oli Watkins, when we tried to make a move for Aston Villa's forward. But they are so John Duran to Al Nasser for loads of petrol grains. So obviously, getting Watkins was going to be a challenge because we were still trying to qualify for the Champions League. And one thing to also note is that Arsenal is no longer in the rebuilding phase. This is not a project anymore. The project was 1920 when Arteta first joined in December 21-22, and to a certain degree 22-23, but 22-23 was like a transition from the project to the title challenging team. However, where we are currently as a club is in a phase where every decision has consequences. Whether it's a title push, whether it's a top four battle, whether it's squad sustainability, January transfer window now carries its own measure of weight. This window isn't about squad fillers or emergency loans. The last time we had an emergency loan in form of Raheem Sterling was an absolute disaster. It's about whether Arteta believes in his group as currently constructed and if they have enough in the tank to go all the way to the distance. Because for the last 3 campaigns in a row, we finished second. However, a calculated move can tilt the balance in our favor. So tonight, we're going to unpack Arteta's January transfer logic. No recycled rumors, no Twitter hype, just reality. First off, let's look at Arsenal's attacking situation. Where are we attacking wise this season? In terms of the players themselves, we have Vitor Gyökeres, Gabriel Jesus, Kai Havertz, who lead the line. We have Leandro Trossard, Gabriel Martinelli, and to a certain degree, Eberechi Eze, who can play on the left-hand side of attack. We have our talisman, Bukayo Saka, the exciting Noni Madueke, and of course, the exciting Max Dallman on the right-hand side. If Nwaneri can also do a job in that position as well. But all these players I've called are players that have enough to contribute to the team score this season. Now let's look at the numbers. Bukayo Saka has 7 goals this season. He's followed closely by Gabriel Martinelli, Vitor Gyökeres, and Leandro Trossard with 6 goals this season. Eberechi Eze has 5 goals alongside Mikel Merino. You also have Noni Madueke, who has contributed with 3 goals, while the rest of the goals are spread by other players of the squad. From a tactical standpoint, Arsenal still dominate territory. We still have loads of possession, and we have loads of chance creation phases. Our structure is solid, no doubt. Our spacing is excellent. Our football is ruthless. But guess what? Dominance doesn't always equal goals. Let's take a quick look at what happened just on Saturday. Arsenal had 16 shots against Wolves. Did we score any? No. Just 2 on target. We had to rely on our backup striker, Mr. Own Goal, to actually score the 2 goals we needed to, save us from the embarrassment of almost drawing with the worst team in the league this season. There have been games where we've controlled everything except the scoreline. especially against low blocks, where we often need multiple high quality chances to score even once. Let me take you back last season. Arsenal had 14 draws. Yes, 14 draws. And in those 14 draws, Arsenal led in 9 of those games. But unfortunately, because of the fact that we could not turn that dominance into more goals, we ended up drawing. And we all know how that campaign ended. And the slot came in from nowhere and just ran away with the league. That's not always a striker problem, but it does shine a light on our efficiency in attack, our decision making in the box, and of course, our little margin for error. Ateta knows this. I believe he does. He sees the data, he sees the patterns, he's the manager of the club. But the question now is, does Ateta believe if this is systemic or if this is situational? Now let's look at the real issue. Goals, injuries, rotation. This campaign, like last campaign, we have suffered so many terrible injuries, especially in our attack. Kai Havertz played just 30 minutes as a sub in the very first game of the season against Manchester United, and he suffered a knee injury that has kept him out till this very moment. He also had to go under the knife, which meant that he had done two major surgeries this year. First, for his hamstring when he got injured in February, and for his knee when he got injured in August. And at the time of this video, Kai Havertz is not still available for selection. Then there was Gabriel Jesus, our number 9, who finally started picking some form towards the tail end of 2024. Scored a hat-trick against Crystal Palace, scored a brace against them in the Premier League, scored one against Brentford. Then when Arsenal played Manchester United in the FA Cup, following a clash with Bruno Fernandes, he suffered an ACL injury that kept him out all the way from January till December. 11 months without our striker. Of course, Vitor Gyökeres, who was finding his feet in the club, did so well in the game against Burnley. It was sort of a halftime because he had picked up a muscular strain. He had played so many games, and we had just Mikel Merino who came in as a sub from time to time, but it took its toll on Gyökeres. Even Bukayo Saka, playing very well for the club, received the pass against Leeds United, scored an amazing goal. But when he was trying to go for the ball again, his hamstring. Thankfully, this wasn't the hamstring that got torn last season. I think it was the other leg, but we lost Saka for an extended spell. How about Dodi Madueke? Playing so well, he hadn't gotten the goal contributions we were expecting of him at that point in time, but he was one of our most exciting players, especially in game against Anfield where we really struggled. Played well against Man City, came off at halftime, and we didn't see him for the next 2 months. What about Martinelli? He had his own injury struggles. What about Leandro Trossard, who is one of our most efficient players this season? When Arsenal played against Bayern Munich, he came off the pitch. So you can see that these injuries have been consistent. Like, it has been terrible. Arsenal attacking numbers do not exist in isolation. Availability has played a very major role. Yes, load management is important. Arteta has tried to rotate, even though most times injury has actually forced his hand. But it has actually disrupted our rhythm in attack because we could not just have a consistent front three who could do the business due to the fact that injuries kept on coming thick and fast for the club. I think that has to juggle fitness, it has to juggle tactical balance, it has to juggle long-term durability. And the juggling act has actually ensured that Arsenal has never fielded their strongest XI consistently. So when fans ask, why don't we buy a striker? I think I'm probably asking a different question. Will this striker fix continuity or will he complicate it? Let's remember that January signings do not arrive in a vacuum. They arrive in a system that demands immediate understanding. Another key thing to note is Arteta's transfer philosophy. Let's remember, if something we learn about Arteta is that he doesn't chase noise, he chases profiles. Mikel Arteta recruits players who, one, understand positional play, can press intelligently, are tactically flexible, and can buy into that collective responsibility. And that's where you would see that the players that were able to come into the club and let's go real quick. Did they fit this profile? Just take a critical look. You will verify that. Look at Fabio Vieira, very exciting player, very tactical, good in his passing. But was he able to fit to that collective responsibility of defending when it was required? Nope. Pepe, Willian. There's many players that have come and go because of the fact that they could not fit into that profile, that project, that system that Tata has built. That philosophy has basically shaped every major signing that we've made in recent seasons. If you see how the players have been signing in recent times have been, they fit into that mold that Tata wants in a player. And in January, it is very hard to find players that fit into this philosophy. They may exist, but availability, price, and willingness don't often align. That's why Arsenal hardly makes impulsive January moves. Rather wait for 6 months than commit to the wrong player for the next 3 years. Look at what happened with Declan Rice. Yes, we wanted Caicedo. He didn't come. We got a short-term punt in Jorginho. But in the summer, what did we do? We blasted out £105 million to sign a player that is actually the British transfer record. And has it been one of our most important players right now? The answer is yes. I can give many more instances that fit into what I just said. But let's just take Declan Rice and the perfect model of how Tata does his business. So in all honesty, Arsenal really need a striker. This is actually the heart of today's discussion. Do we need a striker, or do we need more reliable goal output from the system as a whole? Our current approach spreads goals across the front line and midfield. I've initially spoken about the amount of goals that our strikers have gotten, but let's touch on what we have gotten from our midfielders. Declan Rice, 2 goals. Itawaneri, 1 goal. Martin Zubimendi, 1 goal. Mikel Merino, well, he's still a midfielder technically, 5 goals. Obviously, we've not gotten any goals from Martin Odegaard. He has not really been in the team with the incessant injury that he has had on his knee and his shoulder, of course, in recent times. Further back, we have the likes of Ricardo Calafiori, who has scored 1 goal. Jurien Timber scored 3 goals. And of course, Gabriel Megales has scored 2. So the approach of scoring goals across the forward line and the midfield makes us less predictable. It also means that when one area dips slightly, the impact is felt more, in all honesty. A traditional number 9 isn't automatically the answer. However, if that striker doesn't press, if he doesn't link up play, if he doesn't understand rotations, our system suffers. So the real need isn't a striker, it's the right solution. So what kind of striker fits Arteta's profile? 1, he must be very comfortable receiving the ball with the back to goal. 2, he must press aggressively from the front. 3, he must understand positional rotations. 4, he must contribute even when he's not scoring. Remember that interview that Mikel Arteta did when he was asked about Gyökeres not scoring in a couple of games, and what he said was that he loves the striker to contribute even though he's not scoring. That's Arteta for you. This is also why many big name strikers don't fit Arsenal, regardless of goals scored everywhere. However, if a striker comes in January, let's not expect a pure poacher. Nah, you have to expect a system player who scores, and not a striker who needs the system built around him. So there's a trade-off between internal solutions and new signings. Arteta has shown repeatedly in the past that he prefers internal evolution. Rather than buying solutions, he creates them, making tactical tweaks, adjusting roles, increasing responsibilities to some certain players. And that approach keeps harmony in the squad and avoids disruption of our chemistry mid-season. From Arteta's perspective, internal solutions are safer, they are cheaper, they are more controllable, especially in January. This doesn't mean he will not sign anyone when the opportunity comes. It's just that the bar has been set really high. So let's also remember the financials and the January market realities. January is not a buyer's market. Selling clubs will inflate prices, agents will push for short-term deals, and players typically hesitate to move mid-season. It's usually those that maybe has been struggling to get game time from the summer till January, or those that are maybe falling out with their coaches, just like when we got Trossard. Trossard was actually playing consistently for Brighton. But he and, was it De Zerbi or so? Was it Potter? Him and his manager at Brighton had a fallout. And obviously, we saw how he had his dirty laundry in public and whatnot. And got it for £27 million, one of the best deals that were done in recent campaigns. We also see remember that Arsenal is a very financially disciplined club. Every signing has to make sense, not just for now, but for the summer and beyond. Arteta done better, and the recruitment team, we usually think in windows, not in weeks. That long-term thinking often clashes with fan urgency, no doubt. But Arsenal squad stability has been improved, and we can see that. So could we see a surprise deal? If Arsenal's move in January, let's expect it to one, be quiet, two, be late, and three, not heavily rumored. Arteta prefers discretion. Surprise deals suit him because they usually avoid external pressure and their narrative-driven expectations. It won't be a flashy headline signing, but it will be a functional one. Someone who can fit into the squad immediately and grow into the role we're going to give to him. If that player doesn't exist, Arsenal won't force it. So there's also a striker in January. The next answer is this. If Arteta believes that striker is not going to limit our ceiling this season, maybe he can go for him. If he feels the squad can adapt and maybe he can manage the workload internally, he'll probably wait. But as history tells us, when Arteta waits, it's deliberate. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Arsenal will send a striker in January? Or should we trust our squad till the summer? Put your thoughts in the comment below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us at All About Arsenal for more Arsenal content. Till then, come on, you Gunners.